Hey everybody, I'm Anders Nyström of Katatonia, and you're watching theageofmetal.com.
Vexation, internal void. My dreams are getting darker and darker.
Hey guys, this is Elston with The Age of Metal. I have here Anders of Katatonia. How you doing? How's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you?
Pretty good. How's the heat?
Huh?
How's the weather?
It's very hot.
Yeah.
It's very humid, very hot, very non-Swedish. Mm-hmm. But still, I think we can handle it.
Yeah, not like Stockholm.
Not at all, no.
Okay, so you came to the U.S. not so long ago with Bloodbath, good friends of yours, last fall. How does it feel to be back in the U.S.?
It's great. I love to be back in the US. I think it's slowly turning into one of my favorite places to play. Actually, it has a lot, to do with it. I mean, it's a vast, big country, but it's like, you have same language wherever you go. Mm-hmm. If you compare to Europe, you travel a few hours in each direction, and you just come to a new country. Here you come to a new city, and there, it's, the language barrier, and you have the same currency everywhere you go. And also you have you can have the same internet provider and roam wherever you want. So that helps touring a lot here.
Any specific cities that you like?
Well, usually, New York and LA, they're always like standing out at some point. But I kind of. I don't think I have favorite cities, but it's. I think it depends on what kind of build you're out with, because I see it's the touring with Opeth was obviously then every city was great, So it's depends on the build, but I really enjoy playing everywhere we can go.
So this tour is, I would call it interesting kind of lineup, because you have Devin, Townsend, you have Katatonia, you have Stolen Babies, and you have Paradise Lost. How is it touring with such a diverse kind of lineup?
It's great. It keeps it diverse. It's versatile. It's really interesting, and I think what the bands have in common is a lot of they're all like it's a lot of melodic. Like it's a melodic package, but it's still a different melodic package. It's not like three bands sound the same, but we all share a lot of good like atmospheric personality, I think, too. Yeah, between everybody.
This is the fifth date for this tour. Tell us about the fans' reaction to you guys so far.
I think the best gig so far was yesterday in LA. Obviously, the first gig is always going to be the rocky gig, wherever you start. So I'm happy that didn't start in LA. Actually, the crew has to find their space. You have to fix a lot of technical issues, and all the kind of normal foreign stuff. But San Francisco was also really good. Vancouver was really good, actually. It's quite surprising. Canada seems to be also like seems to be that we gained some popularity there recently. So it's also cool to go in and out of Canada on this tour a lot. So, but LA definitely the highlight so far. It's just the fifth show. So, but have hopes for tonight as well.
Okay, so let's talk about your new album, Dead End Kings, which was just released. By the way, congratulations.
Thank you.
Brilliant album. Brilliant. How was the recording for that album?
Well, it was a pretty smooth process this time, actually. In the past, we've been struggling a little bit with having writer's blocks and taking a lot of time in between albums. But on this time, we basically started writing immediately when we came off the tour with Opeth we did a year ago. And as soon as the writing and the recording was more or less integrated together. It wasn't like we sat down and wrote and then we entered the studio. It's like we kind of entered the studio and started writing at the same time. So we just, spent a lot of time in the studio, actually. We spent 6 months. But it was a cool process for us, because it's keeping it very spontaneous. You can add a lot of stuff, you can go back and forth, try out stuff, and you're still recording, so you have the chance to try a lot of stuff. And it also keeps it interesting, and it's really fun. It's not like you go to work and you know that your 8 hours gonna look the same. You never know what happened, and it just kind of creates a magic to it, I think, for us.
This new album features 2 new members, Per and Niklas. Do you think that they brought something new to Katatonia for this album?
Well, they're excellent musicians, so they put down their flawless performance, I guess. Both of them handle their instruments really well. Soto Per, his nickname is Soto. Yeah, he actually contributed with a song he co-wrote with Jonas as well. So that's kind of a surprise, for people to hear that he already did that. But that's turning out to be one of the favorite songs on the album for people as well. It's Lithian or Lethian, whatever you want to say it. And it also features kind of a little shredding solo in there. And that's something that we haven't had so much before. So that's also a new aspect that he is able to bring into Katatonia. And with Niklas, he's obviously, in the past, I love Matthias, he was a great guy, but he was actually more of a guitar player that played bass. Niklas is a bass player, so you can definitely feel the difference in that as well. So they've added good stuff.
What's the meaning behind your album name, Dead End Kings?
It basically sums up kind of where we see ourselves after 20 years going down the road, because it's 20 years is a long time, and people, if you talk to people, they kind of expect you to be at some point like way more successful, and I always talk to them like, fine, that's fair enough, but how do you measure success? For me, being successful is being in a band for 20 years and having the same lineup that started the band still going. That's successful for me. Whereas they would say like success for me would be like, oh, I thought you lived in a mansion and you had 3 cars and tons of money on your bank account, but that's not the case. So they more or less said like, so your band, 20 years, don't you think that's just going into a dead end? And we just said like, well, then we're the kings of the dead end, that's fine with us. So that's how we summon up the title. It just fits.
I noticed in Dead End Kings that there was a more kind of a more electronic, more like kind of keyboard sound. Was that a direct result of Frank Default?
Yes, we are very, very motivated actually right now by collaborating with him, because what he's bringing into our world from his world is basically stuff that we wouldn't put too much emphasis on doing. He's as he says himself, he's a computer musician, and I rarely start with sitting on the computer when I do music. I take the guitar or I have a drum beat or something. So it's kind of cool, 2 worlds clashing together, and we just try to make it still sound Katatonia out of it, and it adds something fresh to it. So I'm very open to it, as long as it doesn't go overboard. And it's very important that when you say that we have more keyboards, it doesn't mean that we are turning into a techno band or anything like that. Right. It's like the keyboards themselves are usually made of piano or strings or ambient effects, so it still sounds very Katatonia, and not some dubstep dance stuff. Nothing at all like that.
Right. Yeah. Right. How did you meet Frank Default?
He was an acquaintance from the guy who usually records and engineers our albums, David Castillo. He was an acquaintance from him, so we met him through him, and we just found out that this guy is really into the electronic stuff and everything, and I think we just started talking about it, like inviting him just to spice up some stuff. And as soon as we did, we noticed like, wow, this guy really knows his stuff, and from there on, he ended up on both of our 2 last albums. So.
Okay. In your last album, you had a guest vocalist, Krista Linder, in the song "Departer," and in this album, you have Silje Vunebert of The Gathering. How did that come about?
Basically, we felt that the song needed something more than just Jonas' vocals. We didn't want him to put his own harmonies on it, because we felt like there should be some other flavor, something else to color it. And the first thing was like, who should we invite? we don't want to invite Christer again. He already did a flawless performance on the part from last album. It would be kind of silly just to repeat it all over again. And we felt like, should we go for a female vocal? And we started laughing about it like we're going down the road 20 years and we're pretty much being called a gothic metal band, and all the gothic metal bands, they always have female vocals.
Right.
So we said like, maybe this is our time now.
Right.
Let's do it. So we just contacted her. We were friends with her, and she was the first name that popped up when we thought about female vocals, and it turned out great. She did a great job, and it's one of my favorite parts actually.
For the lyrics on Dead End Kings, for me, one of the things that I've always been a big draw for Katatonia, for your band, was that the honesty in your lyrics. They're not really happy lyrics. They're very kind of depressing, kind of dark. What is it about the darkness that attracts you?
That is a good question. I should ask that myself. I have asked that myself a lot of times. I'm not really sure. I think it's very deeply rooted within me. I think it probably comes from some sort of genetic offspring. It's like going back into my heritage. Probably I should actually do a check up on my ancestors, see what they were about. But it just comes natural to me. Shredding.
Being one of the main songwriters in Katatonia, what inspired you to make the music that you do?
What?
Being that you're one of the main songwriters in Katatonia, what inspires you to make the music that you do?
Everything, basically. I mean, musically, anything I come across, I pretty much try to use as inspiration. I am a very open-minded guy for that. I mean, I can hear a song on radio and try to turn that into an influence for something I want to do. But there's so much more beyond music that is inspiring these days, All the awesome cinematic epic movies that you see on theaters, they're a big influence for me. Just an example, like the movie The Road, that was a huge influence for me. When I saw that movie, I just felt like, I want to write 4 Katatonia albums right now, Stuff like that. There's also books, there's, anything basically what just happens. Being on tour, this also motivates you. I mean, just going into different scenarios in life, seeing how people behave, seeing different kinds of circumstances in different cities. Anything is an influence, basically.
Okay, let's talk about your other band, Bloodbath.
Yes.
Recently Mikael left the band. Have you guys started looking for new vocalists? Have you started writing new music?
I would love to just reveal the new vocalist right now, but I can't because it's not been contracted. It's there's some bureaucracy that you need to take care of first, which I think is boring and sucks. But just the way it is. But definitely, we have the concerts ready. We have even a lot of titles ready. We have the front cover artwork even ready. What we don't have is the time to record it right now. So we just need to find that little gap. We're gonna wait for Axe, Martin Axenroth, to come off, tour with Opeth, and try to find a gap where he's home long enough to be able to cut the drums. And from there on, we're just gonna, as soon as we find some gap in our schedules, we're just gonna go on and, knock it out. So I think the next Bloodbath album, safe to say somewhere in 2013, but I can't say which part of it yet.
Going back to Katatonia, you guys have evolved so much since your first album, Dance of December Souls. Going back to the early days, do you feel if you were able to look back to it, would you change anything about it?
No, definitely not. I wouldn't change anything. I'm really proud of our past. It's what brought us to where we are now. We built everything on where we came from. We started out as a kind of a more extreme metal, doomy death act, and I still love that stuff. It's just not. We don't sound like it today, but I still love it. Totally love that. It's like with people ask me like with Paradise Lost, you know, I love their new stuff, but you know, I'm still like, you know, I want to hear your songs from Gothic and everything. So I know where they're coming from. You know, same with people asking me, why don't you play songs from Dance of December Souls? And I'm like, well, that's the same question I would just ask Paradise Lost. So I, you know, it's hard things.
What's next for Katatonia? What are you doing after this tour?
We're doing a really long European tour right after this, 2-month tour, and after that we are going to South America, and the touring is gonna continue pretty much non-stop. We're gonna go to Australia, and we're gonna go back here again, I heard, and it just keeps rolling. There's also gonna be another edition of Dead and Kings in a 5.1 format that we are gonna make very experimental. We're gonna we're gonna strip it from the heavy parts. Like we're gonna take away the drums, we're gonna take away the distortion, and just have like a cinematic singer-songwriter approach on the album. So it's gonna be pretty different. That's gonna come out. We also have our 20th year anniversary DVD coming as well. That's just collecting dust right now. It's ready and done. So it's just about the label to, you know, see where they want to fit it in right now. But I think somewhere around Christmas would be good.
Any last words you want to say to our readers and listeners here at the Age of Metal?
Well, I would say hang in the heat, basically, and can't wait to play for you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Anders.
Thank you. Cheers.
In the prayer, I can't seem to find the right